me pull it up. Second or first one, doesn't matter, right?
No, doesn't matter.
Okay. Alright, I have it up and I'm ready to go when everyone else is.
Yeah, it's at the top of the
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. We're good?
It defeats wood bar, turns out cursor lowers the bar. Real to 16 top users, all defense calls UNLV 3 and throughout the development research training. Roll to use sources, intelligence community, the project reach low cost, and that's our bits of development, leading for security implications, CRISPR, low cost easy use, basic credits, about $11% have, as we intelligence agencies, research in countries different, as standards in those of Western countries, increase reservation, bio agents, ISIS, trying to do it now, meta 16 terrorist groups, counting to force to attack one invasion causes, a great cursor, about here, someone's false, at the end of the game, goop, loses territory, become even more territory to amplify, about word for left to capture 2014 document, on how to weaponize, play, isolate, find a way to use modern type thing, military has scientists access, remnants of the, about programs, new generation weapons, and receiver hand easier, should be much deadlier, due to the ISIS demonstrating interestingly looking up at the U.S. range, unprepared, causing station, turns over Pat Miller, in 16 years, game of terrorist groups to modify, it relieves new arts, and cause both the human and lobster activity, but be delivered, loose pandemic, levels changes, will float our economy, military seem to suffer total theory of the imagination, comes to bar, trust, class of reasons, and similar engineering, lower cost, quicker generation, smaller facilities would be easy for them to actions, measure, environmental attack, measure, technology makes each of manipulating neighbors, because he was on the down available, sponsored, and so genetic change, occurring, virus bacteria never existed due to bioengineering terrorist mechanisms to create human choice with low diversion of AV, modified lethal, virus have long latency, period, show those who the tribal wall kills as much as 90%, operate even worse down, Mooney, has spread multi bird flu virus, and human flu cause of global pandemic, so we can decline 90% lethal, both highly contagious smallpox curry, and next to the BVP, and advanced genetic manipulation technology, enables in person, enable artificial smallpox, next to their convulsive population, causing collapsing operations, shut down for lethal contagious virus spreading, and people don't report where there are reasons why we like to suffer from harvest beds, then decades ago, they need to be prepared to deal with the viruses, when there's more resources being starved, if you're already Trump causes retail gardeners, 60 tropical the north side of beds, like, direct to a terrorist event, pulls of heavy-handed way, they don't want to be expect to match on national security, BB, I'll head back down to harder from bullets, heavy speed, would be important to not have consultation with harvest allies, who would order massive response targets and attack the Western scale, and then make brothers seem like a rehearsal now, love, attacking you, soul to mean, and you trade use in nuclear weapons, which swept, strike close to be up and bull bears who, first used to be all time, low cost global nuclear war, turns every 15 supports 15 years with UK, any place in the Middle East would be all rage to make ISIS popular, have any allies who 100% diplomatically and economically isolated, but end of the week, every news is news, pointing us right in the face of the extent of engagement, when we're setting up the stage with the U.S. as a target terrorist, will target underserved communities, early detection is key when you enforce these small attacks on, easier for target terrorist financing, carry out itself, attack early detection, and support surveillance wise on reports about health of representative persons, and symptoms derived from physician office, patients with servers have access and uninsured body cares and studies to demonstrate the terrorists undoubtedly recognize this while release of an agent community with high rate of insurance by safe vaccine starting every such community will reduce detection rates odds abroad, spread dispersion and vulnerability of the poor, uninsured ability to spread disease after occurring, disease is burden, uninsured early detection is key, con, 65 uninsured lake heroes to seek they argue this attention becomes dangerous when the problem is deadly, disease with the doubts of those future tractable smallpox, heli, communicable virus and response involved with good fever, and headache unsure delay, care, hoping for something to pass by, waiting this with others to do, setting up a pandemic, universal coverage are much better prepared to happen to healthcare systems are less able, only prepare pandemics or virus attacks a single payer, strong primary care is key, investment in 17 primary care is the first line defense, played important role, initial outbreak is available responses, supposed to treating stabilize patients, secure pressure on the hospital system, primary care safety nets, to sometimes future flu epidemics, surveillance, triage, prevention, treatment, including distributing medicine and vaccine, turning equal abuse away from primary care, sense of lack of trust, and can fuel epidemics, and people will follow advice and authorities can reduce the risk of starting infection. Primary care helps prevent the treatment disease in primary care, provide its long-term relationship with the patient's medication, makes it easier to respond to during outbreaks, and must improve primary care risk being unprepared and administrative complexities, driving burnout, and then kills doctor patient trust, single payer fixes both days, and safety working environment, limited resources, not being able to care for patients, there's come to the encouragement of property, and patient physician relations, probably some single payers in the position, and drugs national surveys have identified growing burnout among physicians in these simultaneous physician site, bureaucratic tasks, primary care for burnout for every reason, our clinical work for primary care physicians, complete 2 hours of administrative work, so hallmark is single payers, the direction of physicians, administrative work, single payers, and single primary care for medicine, and mental health, things that will could do, address burnout, the only thing of preventive cost of foster, in relationship with the general practitioner, early relations, spend more time seeing fewer patients in a day, no word about, and revenue quota, reduce the strength of emergency rooms, unburdening those burned out physicians, long health agreements, and commodity physicians, burnout, administrative requirements, imposed by insurance companies, take clinical time away from primary care physicians, insurance complexities are causing massive physician shortages, and rushed visits, which prevents thorough diagnosis, correction, because they see 40% of primary care physicians say that they're experiencing burnout, because they're leaving those with shortage, 9,000 physicians, and the physicians are under much pressure, administrative pressure, and less time to care for patients, they are spend an hour per day in insurance paper, insurance overhead, conference, visit, making it difficult for sound examinations, in thorough diagnosis in a 50-minute slot, rush, business, kill, early detection, rise of the team, first to deliver, index, accurate diagnosis, required time, growing stage on, time of emergency, major causes of misdiagnosis, one time of limited physicians, make quick assumptions, initial cognitive devices, increase the likelihood of missing disease, warning signs, the plan, the United States government should establish consolidated government financing for health services, including at least primary care and value-based and annuitized payments for curative therapies in the United States. Advantage gene therapy, we're shifting away from fee-for-service now, but it's ineffective private payers are incurred federal programs can't exert enough pressure to push for effective value-based care. New Rock 17% of the problem, the value is to celebrate priority to back the same cost of value-based care after not transforming health and makes only minor modification fee-for-service instead of payments for certain data does not make providers responsible for cost of sharing health outcomes since most organizations are trying to facets and overrides define resistance of to choose between accountability for outcomes or being paid for every service providers to choose a status quo reason government pilots only 1% resistance to track as opposed to the shared lossy mess are not making the industry toward new models in decades before we have to change clinical to an age wave inflation promises swap the entire federal budget that crushes gene therapy innovation multi-payer fee-for-service systems chill investment Daniel 17 the new product lies in gene therapies potential to cure untreated genetic disease to kill gene therapies have pressure to reform reimbursement in the United States to better support one-time cure to provide eventual miscarriage payments relative to involved outcomes raises and media costs involved by biotech companies that their advancements come out for genetic disease solutions were mentioned dollars with the limited financial reserves and resulting preference for new payment model by building results-focused healthcare system urgent need to adapt healthcare reimbursement models to encourage innovation curative gene therapies how to contribute to cost of delivering gene therapies incentive for aligning payments to manufacturer value-based payment arrangements and efficient development for long-term evidence on fee-for-service drugs are reimbursed for unit price for one-time therapy lead to frontal the value of therapies can cost many millions long-term benefits not be quantifiable time of FDA approval and no great uncertainty but I need from a time payment in America said the ability to change insurance plans and only plan choice increase payer reluctance to pay for the expected value gene therapy sets a subsequent payer would realize downstream benefits in the short-term but your prices that make it difficult to recognize and pay for long-term and time is critical for the uncertainty about payment can limit access and study future investment clarity is the now value-based payment calls considerable potential one-time gene therapy payments can be tied to available evidence containing how holistic view of the value payments would be delivered over time instead of upfront based on outcome of improvement measures would allow payers to smooth the cost of loading additional budget pressures and challenges of tracking to determine patient results and new person need to share patient outcome information across payers alignment as a result base payment increase our incentives for evidence development current statutory provisions are not designed to capture such arrangements no current contracts travel across payers to adapt payments and data systems support curative therapies may take time but the gene therapies coming to progress and these issues needed now to realize their potential more must be done to address the barriers that deter innovation access gene therapies gene innovation is key to power projection and preventing China rise and malady durability sequence and transitory noise has to the military not only China's already expressing interest in tagging therapies already considered bodily functions through gene therapy like American military planners are both substantial to gene therapy tech are not universally said to deter gene therapy it's experimental and the process has been made as biotech and it holds the potential for decisive advantage of power protecting people to suddenly beyond the reach of adversaries other actors are spending their to reach already such as notably where force planners must conserve weapons and contrary on creating so much reason and advantages in Chinese researchers proposing the use of chromatic weapons and laws of power projection causing nuclear war brands of 15 national stability interwoven with U.S. foreign president Sun the current naturally American press armor security competitors to historical rivalries and induced caution in allies and adversaries like deterring aggression and he said was behavior watching have backed away from this world and global stability would suffer the literal destabilizing influence of security combat to make reawaken historical antagonism reimburse the charge China might assert the pressure interest parts already stabilizing the versus Iranian tendency to proxy wars and the insane operations challenges ask what's hard to imagine increased ability to produce the coordinates to deal with pandemics more problematic than might be economic consequences could lead Japan and South Korea seeking to avoid strong looking our versus the involving regional tensions.
The next two more important.
Gene therapy solves Ebola. Our thoughts of gene therapy potential to eliminate Ebola virus and deters and social progress of vaccination strategies and have meant that the infection to remain such a problem. The sporadic outbreaks of infectious HIVs have been a major concern. Ebola was fairly severe to developing vaccines and effective antivirus party including RNA to replication logical approach to advantage gene therapy treat the infection and serious nature of infection with the BOV makes it practical to develop new drugs and eventual clinical trials and preventive therapeutic immunization using gene provides many advantages. Ebola is uniquely likely to mutate, cause extinction, survive before it grows in Africa. The curve that would have a role in this might be stopped many might face extinction. These so said not to risk because of the management sanitation, but the way the virus mutates to begin the RNA viruses mutating quickly. Many different strains of create multiple known some may already be airborne have a higher basic rates to overcome defensive natural variability. Human rates of small genetic variety ideal for breeding strains in the full contrived these outside the body vaccines bottleneck in production lack of responses from global authorities. China war escalates. Robert number 17, cognitive devices, the fuck of war, attribution bias, exasperating trust, and the time constraints, domestic pressures lead to escalation issues are wrapped up in nationalism, rather than negotiating them, make for resurrection act, escalating to nuclear level, lose inadvertent escalation is likely, ASB increases the risk and changes makes a missile, increases risk of miscalculation, nuclear escalation channel will honor end of view, official might understand how time initial strikes with target, ceasefire and never switches speed up, the decision to go nuclear, so does Russia, Korea at 15, US, in need of like aggravating nuclear deterrence as Russia has taken several practical steps to deter, develop nuclear weapons and tested cruise missiles in the Bible Sea, INF treaty, the never involved nuclear weapons centered of a strategy to offset conventional military inferiority. Russia would escalate the conflict and seize a de-escalatory nuclear strikes in the event of war of NATO risk and nuclear escalation would certainly be present. Single payer improves trust. Miller 16, the patients are a disadvantage. Having to navigate healthier single payer may mitigate biases because of the emphasis on preventative medicine.
I'm sending out that card. It's marked at preventative.
Okay, we are gonna take a second breath. Yeah, that's fine.
I just started it afterwards because I had no idea, and I didn't have much fun. That's out and it's marked. Where's the rest of our food?
Back. Yeah, I think that's fine. Does that make sense? And then, with this, I'll talk to you about this after this. Okay, stop.
39 seconds, please.
So 9:21. Okay. The plan says you include at least curative therapy payments. What are curative therapies?
Curative therapies are breakthrough individualized genetic therapies for like, I don't know, that's the
Okay,
second
do you
bit.
cover anything else?
Yeah.
Well, we said including at least, which
Primary
means
care, so what else?
in the curative therapies you just talked about. That's
So
what the
you
plan
only cover
specifies.
primary care and
Oh,
curative
no,
therapy?
no, no.
No,
The
the-
plan,
So then what
that's
else?
just like things that we absolutely fiat guaranteed funding to.
Okay,
It's
so
our
you
argument,
create a
consolidated
government- wait, hold on.
government healthcare brings the U.S. health financing system under the purview of the federal government.
Got it, and the federal government has to determine the value of all the different types of medical services provided in the US,
Under,
right?
Under
sorry, what do
the
you mean
ones that would be
value?
reimbursed by the
We
plan.
established
And what are those?
value-based
What are those?
annuitized
We've
payments for
already answered this
curative
question. The
gene
plan
therapy.
text is a point of reference for any competition questions. We
This
specified
isn't
two
a
things in the
competition
plan that
question,
we
this is a solvency question. I
Right,
wanna know
the
what medical
primary
services
care
the government
and the
pays
curative
for.
therapies that are specified in the plan are the
Okay.
ones that are necessary to solve our advantages. We bring the overall consolidation of health financing under the federal
Okay.
government. Anything else
The
is
internal links to gene therapy, just
Yeah.
to make sure I have them straight, is first, it's costly to produce these things. But second, I don't understand.
It's not just that, it's also that it chills investment because the potential for profit is much lower under FFS financing schemes than it is under value-based care. So it's
The other thing is that patients switch from private providers all the time, which creates a disincentive for insurers to cover them. The other argument is it prevents data tracking across insurers and demographic groups. All of these things combine to chill investment and innovation necessary and create data gaps that prevent
big,
therapies.
long
Thank you.
answer. Right.
How does the government determine the value of these different therapies?
Well, it's-
That's what the annuitized payment structure does. The Daniel evidence says that long-term tracking enables us to determine the value over longer periods of time rather than short-term.
Okay, so
upfront
like
investment.
plan happens tomorrow, a bunch of government officials get in a room, they start looking at different curative therapies that could work. How do they determine which ones are successful?
Well, by clinical trials, the FDA looks at
The
them.
plan-
What
the
the
And
ones
the government
the
is
plan
the-
would pay for them upfront. Annuitized payments means
Okay.
that there would be an initial payment during the first year. Over time, based upon how the patients are doing, the payment structure
Yeah,
and
that's-
schemes get like adjusted
That's-
up or
that's the
down
point
based
of
on the
it being
effectiveness
annuitized.
of the gene therapy. That's the Daniel card. The Daniel
Okay.
card's a really long
That's
one.
what annuitized means.
Okay, annuitized means just like initial payment,
It's
looking at the different successful
Yeah, based
clinical
on how
trials.
successful it is, the yearly
And
payment.
it has a
can-
bunch of,
yeah.
Daniel also has a bunch of reasons why multi-payer can't do annuitized payments.
Sure, sure. The CRISPR lowers the bar for bioweapon stuff on the first advantage.
Yeah.
Says that it literally only costs $130 for terrorists to develop weaponized smallpox. If that's true, why wouldn't they just spend $1,000, have 10 different smallpox attacks against the US, and what could universal care do about it?
Well, the first thing is that them getting the weapon isn't the only thing they need to do. They need to transport it, they need to
Yeah, but I
put
mean,
it,
can they not do that
terrorist
now
groups do
according to your
have-
advantage?
Our cards say they have resources to do an attack, but I don't think they have resources
Okay.
to do a coordinated attack in 10 cities. But even if they did, early detection, having strong
We're gonna
cognitive
take some more
response
prep.
would still solve it.
9:21 or 29? 21.
Yep. That's good. And then did you get that other card? Oh, yep, cool. Yep. Yeah. 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 Okay, can you get that other thing? And you can replace that with the other thing. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. You're still taking prep? Yep, I got it.
My
on mine.
thing
Yeah,
is out of
got
the
it.
comprehensive finish. I mean, comprehensive here, up to the term national health insurance more restrictive. And trying to describe as a uniform program comprehensive healthcare financing comprehensive means at least the current EHB set. Each item 17 comprehensive covers wide range of service, not limited benefit plan, or supplemental policy and new policies with at least as comprehensive as the affordable care right terms meaning 10 essential health benefits. No caps, they don't cover all HHB sets of funding issue for limits count single service has the expert they go negative round and off discussion fairness. The interest rates this at the plan causes interest rate hikes against inflation roll more 60 exams since when average of federal bonds rate to federal responsible benefit increase in fact it's past more statistically significant following tax together most including the Fed's discussion about policy makers where the benefit increase of either as a recent kind of monetary policy the Fed attempts to curb inflation blows up the economy last minute 18 global crisis to measure economic policy mistakes by the Fed is overheating its like to lead a rising interest rate was restricting the trigger with the rest of the asset levels around the world. A very high debt level has to be concerning debt to GDP level is higher than 2008 would have yet another round of the Eurozone debt crisis goes nuclear. Thompson 15 the independence where's the cost of the balance dependency negative expectations remain towards if leaders anticipate the decline of the independence that drops to protectionist policy refuse to be deterred changes in the world economy that alter the circumstances in ways that render peace precarious and deterrence on the only factor of an everyone again unreliable so deterrence can lose its credibility gave powers Mike Campbell the state's counterplan the 50 states and relevant subnational entities should remove balanced budget amendments legalize deficit spending create state reserve banks for healthcare funding and establish consolidated government financing for health services including at least primary and value-based care annuitize payments for curative therapies in the United States solves better blows United States initiative health and evolution possibilities larger players can concern the commercial targets for federal station of the Supreme Court said a versus preemptive provision agreed by nearly state issues or pressure judges not timing legislative goes the midterms this at dem wave now because the GOP is being torched on healthcare the plan reverses the perception Scott 18 will host a severe possibility healthcare and the backlash that could force them out of power voters to play in the party power to fight wrong with the health has been a power motivated by Democratic voters to undo all the damage to GOP is the only remaining hope is your time many increase the Republicans the blame for Obamacare that has allowed Democrats to stabilization on Southern California that is denying Republicans and when that was the electoral movement for the GOP 2018's key to check Trump for destroying democracy the aggressive state Republicans will go to the House and the American government Clarkson Trump's third stage Trump's loyalty to Trump going leader because loyalty is heat access and influence political scientists flag is a key threat to Democratic stability Democrats can control these one house checks and balances operate but if Republicans hold Trumpocracy will be upon us judges but no that the green light police has to work here to see what it takes to get on Trump is vulnerable they investigate a friend and the Democrats will this was well trouble for Trump the LIC's government sunlight against abuse of power is starting the polluted check democracy solves great power war taking somebody challenging international order they can accomplish the word return to order for the accomplishment he was led order that confidence been avoided when I said we have the pursuit company Democratic government who is the rulers authority about legitimacy liberal order has seen the loss of confidence democracy keep airways in the United States weakness is the best way to avoid great power clashes to make U.S. position clear the next 4 years are a critical inflection point the rest of the road will take is to the free market counterplan. The United States federal government should repeal Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, and tax exemptions for employer-sponsored insurance, increase direct cash transfers on a needs-tested basis, require an audit healthcare provider insurance transparency, and reduce restrictions on the supply of medical professionals and clinics, and should expand its surveillance of disease outbreaks and emerging vectors, and require rapid response to appropriate sites, solves a real free market, solves a one-to-see certain clinic Graham, 70 many cover insurance, not to do with the cost of housing, not encouraging growth, less money spending, without even about less than what we actually spend 31% spent on U.S. healthcare, so we use wasted recently, 1960 years and a half, that was spending was good or only 11% similar mechanisms we use in Medicare, Medicaid, and the other government programs. We need to do more than repeal and replace it. We need to play a role in insurance and the government's control of health care and replace it with a system controlled directly by patients. The Amazon disad Amazon Care solves the case fills up, allows the rest from the 18. The corporate role reception of the initiative like my predictive that shows that the university commercially use the workforce laboratory innovation free for proper making sense of constraints and focus on tech solutions that provide high quality demand, preparing from the tort systems and other nation giving proper affordable coverage. Everyone talks about typically license could be one of those political considerations. The interest unknown gets out the window. The must so secure to lead the way to Medicare for all with the federal government adopting the business world's advantage solves costs, but the plan crushes Smith 18. The announcement of a potential private sector initiative, single payer would be the true price reducing disruption. The U.S. economy is one in MSM's history. Combined market power of the three largest private employers might be enough to bring down the cost of the argument for single payer left. Plans for healthcare remain so radical, speaking them honestly, would prompt instant repulsion rules over the consciously which general learning factors to establish a company that would reducible and immediate thereby reducing costs. It's all about the vision increase over time. It makes me see whether the country can bring the cost out of the healthcare system or the Sanders Democrats can ratchet up their Medicare for all records. That key to solve AI also solves their China scenario. We 18 Amazon and single healthcare by training standards that their companies are using China as their laboratory. They're not focused on artificial intelligence. Basically said when they have a leader in AI, officials emphasize the use of artificial intelligence. There was like defense aggressive mode in the use of healthcare Chinese tech companies have embraced all involved. Unlike the U.S. AI is key to food security. Rascov 17 has a lack of immediate development of AI acquisition, technology, navigation, and large amounts of data to use specifically navigate data. It's collected data that can lead to an extensive reprocessing ag are so starved data that data needs to be more robust. The agriculture and policy really important until they're increasing their tremendous top of using by more rapid adoption, bringing new single profit effects, a little bit letting you replacing a development novel therapies are just species of back in economic leading with developing new drugs, the amounts of like with the subject next generation insect solutions, strong U.S. ag stocks, a host of global conflicts, cast a law, 17 U.S. mission in the sector for some North Iran, competition with Russia and searching China because better responsible to be nuanced, including food security, food insecurity, and lead stability and private mass migration, that we seek to price approaches, top of government food abuse, business or drivers, leaders, strong agriculture sectors, unquestionable requirements for rising income needs of demand for nutrition food provided for medical farms, virgin, markets purchase 1% U.S. ag exports that the wood will go by 2.5 billion. The advantage. The plan causes doctor shortages, starts their only summer 16 single when disruptive health businesses need to stay profitable with their professional eliminate services after to see the right all hospitals will close that right to assume it's not the answer. Governorships are much easier to accommodate. The plan causes a moral hazard turns. They're internally to having short-term gains, coal 18 trade off between division insurance and everything we take into gains from short-term against adverse incentive effects on the company right to be full shortage, so job options at high level negative sense adverse effects accommodate short-run insurance scheme. The plan causes rationally long wait times means you can't solve early detection. We can touch 14 single payer can make things worse for me because most healthcare system and issues executive rushing results in long wait times means the individual may not get here, individual may get with the cancer, and a better survivor rate than Canada citizens Canada is government goes to aspect of healthcare hospitals are former law, but the low is because hospitals sign to wait to treat someone due to financial concerns. Single payer leads to rationing of healthcare. Single payer also budgets quality. The quality of healthcare is far too critical to rules and regulations that hinder it. No impact to the disease to a bioterrorism. Empirically disproven Dove 12 bacteria uses weapons that history proves to have killed 105 decimation weaponized Shakiro June Thurston's fate of the Johnson of the couple of things head. I let you remember so this represents worst case nobody got 6 groups won't use bioterror, don't have access price 16 developing a biological weapons to need to takes experts also takes a zero amount of time and money and explosives are research the research and they kill more people. Next advantage. Value-based payments fail now. It doesn't solve their internal links. Look at 70 value-based payments. They go to sharing fixes as the same differentiate never mind the warning that the theory that of the deaths in hospitals, half of the charges, half of the same companies are supply reduction in cost of hospitals ostensibly due to Medicare technology paid for half. How do hospitals achieve impressive results? The searches generate group where we're searching for cause prosperity. The institution began screaming whole leg under ultrasounds on all patients on all inpatients. A positive results is a flip of the coin. The chance of being equipped is not a level of the hospital. There's not going to be patient safety with this matters because rankings are based on the difference between expected and observed mortality. The meaningless of this matrix highlights an example of this low mortality related to lower surgical volume driven by the fear of operating costs and sicker patient value base has failed to measure third-party payers so make healthcare better or less essential remeasure reductions to social more tests value basis tax. A penalty on the 6 is most vulnerable. The plan to give the dollars to the insurance companies and administration is expected in 20 forward. It's been probably the evidence tells we measure value well and has not result in net reduction in cost or any significant increase in real value delivered. The value-based fake news value care will come in the status quo though anyways market 18 healthcare is steadily move towards a value-based expected value-based care is here to say no homes to the last adoption of requirements of force working section of the problem sector track quality which determine the reimbursement tech offers opportunity to provide better care and better management of the patient for what they work faster nearly or 50% of payments will be tied to value. The app can't solve their internal link because they destroy overall pharma. 18 price controls the pharma are only hope to receive high profits to money for research that has been quite productive attacking back to problems in medicine. They advance it will come to the money flows. The money continues flowing to the primary sources of innovation biotech offers bureaucratic control of even the author a different story. The US has a large margin in the world and source of new drugs. All major companies take advantage of pricing independence price controls would be slash R&D budgets so like 80% of the appetite of the venture community was shrinking exponentially. The one AC evidence that China says the DoD would do the gene therapy to solve no reason, universal key, and power projection doesn't matter. Fact by 17 wants to be because of the perception of the states. To be system does not hope to see if counters resistant to 1 out of 5 the directions. Do not seem to believe American services advance would actually be good for them. The United States overestimated the degree to which other star was benevolent. The United States almost certainly frightened others more than its leaders received. The United States is probably not as central the new piece as either of liberals or neoconservatives believe. The corroborating evidence for the nations is extremely hard to identify. US leaders probably exaggerate to the degree to which their power matters. Ebola doesn't have an impact, doesn't go extinction. Park 17 national chemists are very unlikely to cause human extinction. The species extinction less than 4% of the infectious disease nominally globally. Dispersed and other factors contribute to our species. A very numerous diverse people rational response are very unlikely to be killed off by a natural pandemic. High lethal pathogens to the post where they spread so selective pressure pathogens not to be highly lethal. The plan gets defunded. Star 16 single payer with no care consequences to the government. The budget. People participate should always be making those decisions. The funds would have to be decided every year because every other rival. Everything would depend on Washington decisions in Washington. Extreme discovery concentration of payment applies concentrated power and government risk adjustment fails. Canon 18 and theory risk adjustment together identify correct areas of shows them that is not how the government price setting works in practice. Agencies personally get prices wrong even when they know the prices are wrong. Pricing errors tend to persist for decades because price set effect face info and incentive problems.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay, so the Amazon DA, your evidence says China needs to develop AI, but your uniqueness evidence is about U.S. tech companies like Amazon developing it in the U.S. market. Why is the U.S. market key to China's development of AI?
The impact evidence, the Katzenball evidence, says a strong U.S. food production sector is good because it allows for it to be utilized as a deterrent effect against North Korea.
That doesn't answer my question. Why is the U.S. healthcare market key to China's development of AI?
Well, no, so that's not our argument. It's not that China is going to develop AI
What is
in
your
the
argument?
U.S. market. No, it's that Amazon will develop AI in the U.S. healthcare market. That AI is good because
Okay,
it's
but
a strong
U.S.
food
tech
production.
companies in China are already developing AI. That's your evidence. Why is Amazon key, and what card says that?
I think the 1AC uniqueness as well as the second card say that they're going to be developing it in healthcare. We can read more cards on saying that now.
Well, yeah, you're right. It says they'll develop in healthcare, but what card says that healthcare is the only market that AI can succeed
Well,
in?
so you're right. The 1 and C doesn't have like that great card. The 1 and R or the block and the 2 and C will read it then, and it says that.
All right, so
healthcare
we'll
is
answer
key to
this in the
big
1
amounts of
AR, just
data.
so everyone's clear.
It's
The
not-
status of the counterplans
No,
is...
they don't need to
Status quo is
remake a
always a logical
DA
option.
in the
sorry,
block.
what's the status of the counterplans?
Status quo is always a logical option.
Okay, the midterms DA, who gets credit for the plan, first of all?
The party in power, the GOP.
So why is that true, given that almost every Republican would vote against it? It would pass with very minimal support in the Senate.
Well, we disagree that every Republican will have to vote against it.
Well,
The majority
of
vote
course they
parties,
would. All
have
Dems
to
would vote for it. There'd be
it.
11 in the Senate because conservatives hate single payer. How would they be able to take credit for the plan?
Because there is a majority in both parties that will have to sign on. Trump will have to approve it. They'll be able to change the
Yeah,
rhetorical
but
strategy.
they're
Even if
voting
they
for
don't-
Trump. They're voting for
Right,
the
other
senators and
distinction is that the
Congress
uniqueness
people.
evidence says that the Democrats are tying and making a big part of their campaign strategy that the government is messing up healthcare and causing rising costs. The plan will take that off the table so Democrats can't use that to campaign, irrespective of the credit question. So there's two different lanes.
Okay. The T argument. This card that you read that defines EHBs, first of all, it's just from healthinsurance.org. What is that?
I believe it's a glossary that has definitions on healthcare.
Okay, so it's
accessible.
defining comprehensive coverage as it's described in the ACA bill. Why does it have an intent to universalize a definition for all healthcare
No,
literature?
it says that all new policies have to be at least as comprehensive as the ACA bill, and says the ACA
Oh,
says
no, it doesn't. It's defining comprehensive coverage for the ACA.
No, all new policies must be at least as comprehensive as the Affordable
Under
Care
the
Act. And you're right,
ACA.
it says it's EHBs.
Under
Okay,
the
the interest rates DA, what card is your link card here?
The
What-
Romer evidence, it says the app would have a form of a benefit increase.
Okay,
and that has an
doesn't say
effect on
healthcare, doesn't
staff
say
margins
single payer,
significant.
doesn't say anything even remotely related to
It's about
healthcare at
how
all.
the government would respond, or sorry, it's about how the government will provide benefit increases. The app is a benefit increase because it gives everyone forms of
Okay,
health
but it's on
insurance, and
26
then it says the Fed will respond to that.
733.
The free market counter plan with the disease thing, the Amazon Care DA, the interest rates DA, the midterms DA. I'm actually going to put gene therapy above biotech. Okay. Everyone good?
Value-based spells now is our argument. It's because of multi-pair-resistant patient switching rate, because they withhold data which precludes info track to determine actual value of care. The tools exist now, reviewed, refined over time, but the plan's data is key to making it work order. It's easy critics argument will be harder to negotiate, but I'm convinced that if you're given non-definition condition, this week made no drama conditions start from large population of healthcare costs that start there now spend over time care for required from us. Condition lost time experience and data of bond doses rapidly accumulating experience curves, but offensive come more comprehensive and inclusive answers to growth source arguments, and the plan is good for a farmer care code. It's easy to identify because the federal regulation when a larger pattern innovation manufacturing successfully profitable. Even a much larger team has become a profitable West Project Green worthwhile overall adjustment for RI. It's been a little so profitable the mini structure be reduced without department industry. Other converters are profits on like Nepal and drugs have no subsidy drug makers based on price on the cost of drugs on the price most simply existing cheaper would increase gross profit to the drugs being higher than attempt to all within the could cost of decline new drug development. DOD can't do it because the tech doesn't exist. Read a line from our Carter fuck off to the hedge. Impact it's a complex filter, deters conflicts and prevents allied prolif collapse, and it causes growth and escalation of existing disputes. They can see two unique scenarios. China warriors nuclear because every step of chain of the escalation seems containable, and Russia will underestimate Trump, both of which cause miscalculated nuclear escalation. Ebola causes extinctions in RNA virus that's new mutations in unique virulence that goes airborne, which overwhelms defenses and adapts to genetic variation. Durable fiat stops the defunding argument, otherwise every F loses to LOL. Trump takes out your F, and we also fiat a uniquely primary care and gene therapies. In the plan text, risk adjustment is talking about population risk adjustment, which is not annuitized payments, and I answer value-based bills above the biotech plan. Shortages and closure are happening now because of physician burnout and doctor shortages, but the plan stops because it causes investment and also streamlines so that it increases doctor patient trust and FaceTime moral hazard argument is asinine because it just says some people might not stop smoking, but that doesn't take our advantage. There's no rationing. It's Torrance and 324 opponents just a long waiting times. Many of these is based on Canada wait times. It's the fact that Canadians are reduced by some hospital limited supply for non-urgent elective procedures. This would not translate to the U.S. because we not afford to restrict the supply. Jeffrey will send that off. Yes, already. Yes, there's an impact of biotech advances. It makes us really make the risk massive because tracer hacks in the genome into buildable cheap. We can edit disease for virulence and create human transmissible pathogens. Deaths from the top defense analysts who conclude it's an existential threat. Every barrier has been met. That's our Nolan Regalado evidence. Trump retaliates against the Middle East. It goes nuclear turns every impact and causes diplomatic and economic isolation by the end of the week in global nuclear war. Then the evidence also said biotech attack collapses the economy because it collapses global trade flows. T. Plan is comprehensive. Consolidated means that we bring the entire system under government funding, which we set in cross-sex. The plan text also says including at least primary and curative, but not that it's only primary and curative. NHI means basic insurance bars. Into NHI programs under which you have government provides basic insurance that excludes single-payer apps and includes primary care. Stuckler into Dr. Shawver Shaw's with the funded by service Canadian basis here. Style one common point in primary care. Part of the Boston Enriching Healthcare. This is individual population package rabbit consumed of individual and enriched cognitive comprehensive services for all women's common population, not specific to medical program. EHVs is bad because it was in the context of the ACA for political purposes, not universalizable. Overloading bad. It only allows one app that has to pay the full cost of every service, which kills Afghan and causes stale debates. Gets the data picks out any service who are unbeatable. Their network is bad. May learn 18, no country has a single pair system for all services. The very mixes of public private funding, functional limits check. They still get states in midterms, which should be enough for anyone. Reasonability counts out subset states. Perm to go shows what the counterpoint links to. No states counterpoint. There are tons of waivers they need, which links to every DA. The Fed says no to them. They can't change Fed health programs, which means it's still multi-payer and administrative burdens. It writes it, preempts it, and there's no follow-on. All that's in this card. Flowers at 2-1. As you would have to see the obtaining wonderful waivers and changes to federal, all states would be forced to lower coverage with high every has to tell other states. Federal health funds are numerous, such as Medicare, FHB, BHP, VA, IHS, and TRICARE. It's not possible to manage emergency programs to single state system. D would require change of federal law to shift back BHP to the state. TRICARE is run by the DoD. Would already decide that the states have to have more restrictive complexity. Providers would still interact with individual plans. Medicaid is federal program would have to apply for a waiver. Employer health funds are protected under rights that any interference can be challenged under rights and challenged to not protect Vermont. And Liberty Mutual was decided against it, even though Vermont did not specifically target rights that had a connection to another emergency connection with other economic price law, forcing the rights of adoption scheme or restricted choice of assurance that it's not possible to achieve single person at the state level. States counterpoints a voting issue for everyone, but David lets them fiat have said keywords which circumvents meaningful app offense, causes a race to the bottom of the tertiary advantages, points that degrade the quality of debate. Non-uniform or single state counterpoints solve their offense. At least that because waivers means that Trump is able to take credit. Healthcare compacts get struck down. Woman posts 16-year state compacts in healthcare would probably federal supremacy with hard contention. These compacts appear to be political wrong stars with Republican majority in Congress. The free market counterpart permutation to both it links to midterms because it still makes the GOP look good. It links to interest rates because it lowers healthcare costs and increases people's benefits. Fee for service. It can't solve the second advantage because it still maintains fee for service, which requires all the value to happen in one payment, which means gene therapies would cost millions of dollars and no one could afford it. FDA would have no way of determining the value, so they wouldn't approve of it in an FFS system. Multi-payer lets people change plans frequency, which makes them reluctant to cover expensive one-time treatments that only have long-term benefits because it means competitors get the benefits. That prevents data sharing necessary to track long-term outcomes and crushes innovation. All of these chew investment, which was cross-ex of the 1AC and our Daniel and Mekki evidence. Universal coverage of prerequisite surveillance, Place Peterson, in 14 healthcare plan and form of prevention, prevention, decay, chain, and mitigation, and recovery without healthcare access, with all security, service vulnerability, Ebola, or bioweapons, strength of surveillance society. Secret medical report diagnosis distribute the entire system in effect to take away longer because the lack of insurance point outcomes can worsen overall. Outbreak for-profit insurance is bad and undermines coverage for A, and 17 for-profit insurers require exclusive pre-existing conditional payments for expensive claims. You government subsidies large claims on health routine healthcare is expensive, chronic illness, and non-insurable. This is why insurers these subsystems that are the only other alternative is routine general coverage single system or two more efficient, similar, and implement and eliminate competition, produce a competition where it excludes worse than still doesn't healthcare producing paper costing even at least people uncovered. What?
It doesn't solve bioterror because administrative complexity.
It can't solve bioterror because it maintains multi-payer, which causes administrative complexity. I explained that on the state's counterpoint and case. Amazon Care. No food impact barrier at all. On 13 food rights. Did not survive peace for all down. Stability valve relationship against state policy can be forced to change and logos. Pushing to job policy that enhance food security, stability valve for redress construction, give us otherwise legal war pieces. One more point that stability, certain level non-violent stability can help secure pieces. It can cause the state to take actions that preempt safe for grievance action without to choose without pressure on appreciation, preventive, responsive, and medium between food and security, stability, the greatest efficient recent debate. Other tech advances solve Dixon. It's the important science example might be a new agent to track that proven brain consumption needs. Recent tech advances on the way to make precision farming possible utilizing IoT across various data issues can maximize yield sensors, detect mushroom crop growth, and control irrigation, leveraging weather forecast data. Better decisions can be made in advance. How it went under food printing their future conscious power routine, eliminating efficient dramatically reducing food budget emergency check will help you when you overcome food shortages. There's no link. Amazon would just say their package is better and try to outcompete the plan, or they go to different countries. Cross-access and various on the AI stuff. Their evidence says companies are already doing it. The plan doesn't make this up. Single payer solves the ag advantage, the ag impact way pulled at 718. Lack of accessible access to affordable health insurance. One of the most issues facing American farmers with an average age of 58. Farmers are vulnerable to higher premiums. Exporters work at higher premiums. Amazon can't solve the case. It maintains multi-payer, which impact on the other flows. Their evidence just says it lowers costs, which doesn't drive down administrative complexity or change the profit motive, which is driving physician burnout and environment trust. It also still has cost sharing, which deters care. Artiga in 70 research 65 papers in small cost sharing and region $1 to $5 associated with reduced using care including necessary service, which means that, and they also don't establish annuitized payments, which means you can solve the second advantage. AI inevitably in 18 $2 as economies are driving global research in AI by China's like an emerging winner as Taiwan Chinese economy are going to develop deleveraging process and base for live sector to help the country maintain growth. The interest rates and no impact to it. Clear in 50 days. Symmetric positions for average tax like determined here. That just means you're rolling on a first class sharing which cut differences in the inflation while least help the tax power revenue economic crisis increase benefit cooperation leaders seek an investment that's easier to make the research reduce interest rates won't cause a financial crisis. More drug case in 319 versus U.S. interest won't counter financial crisis. High rates are used to back emerging economies rising commodity prices help commodity exports. Emerging market economies improve their current economic position relies on more capital to finance them. Trump tariffs tank the economy. Japan concentration of Trump tariffs derail a delegate global government recovery chain. Terror retaliation full blood chain where the global economy threatens to strangle the global ability to slack details only about some certain European nation already threatened to retaliate. China said it was ready to have a word of saying internationally the global stock market supposed to strong gains in inflation rate and check button economies of markets but the global below the estimate could be risk factors. A tariff current rate hikes trigger the DA-10-OS. In 2027, raising interest rates should have devastating effect on our economy. Our total United States grows in 2020. China interest on national debt is being recently got interest rate for 7 globally that face a potential economic crash for a long way. Period of low rates come to an end. Recent stock market meltdown has contributed to rising rates. One half of all personal income tax below district national. It will exceed or defense equal to social security obligation due to some stuff using reason pricing reasonable investor fear like rising inflation pressures will increase the inflation will prompt the Fed to raise their interest. The tax cut thumbs. This is their ebb. Remember, in 16 following the tax has policymakers try monetary policy. So this is spending bill lane and 18 rising federal government's push interest rates by Senator Trump cited budget bill of worth $300 billion in new budget. There's a budget potential increase in inflation will prompt the Fed to raise interest rates. There's no link because the plan is funded by taxes. Midterms, dim piece is or actually election. Trump already crushed democracy because of creative perception demagogues, massive incarceration, torture, pound credibility institutions. Check 117 record of boxing called to be the same Trump on the Trump to press. As everyone determined to hold this ground, the press is one of several rivalries support with the efforts by Trump to fight the courts of military leaders. First of all, the strongest strikes against overreach of civilian executive for rivalries corporate American companies liberation, which was governments and other federalists and blue states can enjoy policies the power of opposite. Trumpism, Dems lose, ruin in 314-02, keep blue more like a blue shirt, lots of them are passing the empire, primary education, continuing civil war inside. The party gives security struggle and what they're actually running on in order to fundamentals. The DNC is barely financial Bible. Mueller makes Mueller swings the election. 18 headlines about federal events, high profile charge could obscure parts of the message. And throwing majorities of the time and unfortunately, child will educate major charters going into the voting early day. Every day the parties talk about this today. They're not talking about the economy. Diamonds collide without warning. Just as much make the decision interview. The president would generate better highlights. I'll show you the one completely war. Any party such on my district former cypress refusal will such a move Trump my power Mueller party Trump orders that guarantee how control the House or Senate blood the economy is following Russian rail. The developments where Republicans continue to likely suffer. Political barriers. The link is not unique. Dems are already attacking GOP's already attacking Dems overseas affairs, so they can't swap around the plan. Why 1826 why bad Republicans July and August attacking votable Democrats on by frequently using image standards over and arguing that Trump states Dems had become extremists. It would hurt his voters. Goldberg in 17 publicly advances the situation that the Trump voter are down on the left side taxation opposition is much sure they're going to march to victory and have Connington would make sure about all do because rank and file Republicans put those states to play the first vast majority were good old fashioned Republicans. It's fine to be what you almost single ever over majority not vote for these things.
I think we're at 803, I think, right?
Yeah. No, let me just make sure. 806.
I wrote it down.
It's 806. We're starting now. Does that make sense?
Okay. 707. All right, you good?
Yep.
Okay, let's start with the interest rates. The spikes won't cause a financial crisis. It'll be minor. It's about the status quo. It says rising U.S. interest rates won't cause another financial crisis, at least in the near future. The reason being is because it's about like the current rate increases. Why does that assume a higher rate?
No, it's talking about market fundamentals and the way that emerging economies provide resiliency to the system.
Right, that's about like the status quo, is about how these rates are resilient. There's
No,
market
it's
fundamentals
saying that
support them.
because like those fundamentals are in place, if rates were to rise at a faster rate, they would be able to adjust to the
It's
adjustment.
a line long. The rise in commodity rates has helped commodity exporting emerging markets improve their current account deficits, reducing their reliance.
I mean-
It's about emerging economies. It's not about the U.S. economy, which is what our internal link evidence says would be bad for.
Right, we are contesting the claim that interest rates in the United States, which cause a global economic collapse
Okay.
or achieve any
Sure,
spillover.
that's not our internal link. then.
That is absolutely what
But
your
the
impact
next
is.
Evidence
People
I want
just
to
don't
talk
read
about
US
is the
Strategic Global
current
anymore.
rate hikes triggering the disad. It's about the national debt, and I guess this evidence is not speaking to the Federal Reserve. It's not speaking to what they plan to do in the near term. It's an economist saying that because of debt, I should expect rising interest rates. Why should we take that into account if the Federal Reserve itself doesn't care about these numbers?
I think you're totally wrong. I think Tanalis is talking about the way that because the national debt is rising and because the 10-year Treasury yield's like about to cross 3%, he's saying that it's really likely we're going to see an increased rate of interest
Right,
rates
and it's-
hikes in the SQUO.
Okay, the tax cuts, the thumper, you reread Romer, you just read this yellow?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's just, well, once again, your link card was trash. this
Yeah.
is your link card as
Yes.
well, and it says, following a
Yes,
tax
that's
cut,
fine.
policymakers would tighten monetary policy.
Just one last question then for the racist side. The argument you said after that was just that there's no link because taxes.
No, I also read the lane 18 card.
The lane keeps spending. Okay.
And then I said,
Yep.
yeah.
The
finance
Amazon disad,
taxes.
the multi-payer / the for-profit, your internal link to resolving the issues such as Dr. Trust is that there's a lot of costs, very administrative complex because of
No, so
multi-payer
administrative
system.
complexity is different than administrative costs.
Okay, so I guess the complexity insofar as like there's complex billing, you need to bill a bunch of different insurers.
Right, yeah, so it's things like
Right,
complex
and so our
billing,
uniqueness
different.
argument is that Amazon will crowd some of those out and make a
Yeah.
more universal scheme just within Amazon, and will do things like make
Yeah.
their own pharmacies, their own retailers.
No, what would
their own
happen,
insurers, so
yeah,
they don't
your
have this
evidence
complexity.
substantiates that Amazon will be able to get a large portion of the market under theirs, and that it would also make other competitors drive down their own costs, but that still maintains competing like insurers, which force doctors to spend the vast majority of their time filing different paperwork and identifying the different complexities of how insurers bill things.
Okay.
You don't universalize it, you don't put it under a single system, can't solve any of the act.
Seven what, Theo?
7.
terms the Amazon just had? The rates just had. Oh,
Oh, yeah, I got you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to mess you up in the middle of your speech. I just, my pen died.
I understand. I just wanted to make sure, like.
Yeah.
Cool. There's an outlet there, and we have an extension cord if you need it.
Actually, I can get through this speech.
Okay. I'll leave this out if you need it, I guess.
You said advantage to midterms, Amazon rates. Cool.
I'm pulling up the email. Okay, I'm good.
okay, anyone not ready?
No impact deterrence how the country's already escalating in respect to building power. Historical outcomes improve. The building might disincorporate more likely conscious also to not be able to solve because as better political access to kick and federal establish no disease impact the RNA doesn't matter. HRP disproves the historical record says that out of 833 species extinction since 1500, only 4% were classified disease doesn't cause extinction because it also causes burnout because it won't be highly lethal. That's the far core evidence now. The Amazon just have pod where they can see the Amazon's going to spend universal coverage now solves because it comes to a tipping point that creates momentum for a market business driven model to solve groundbreaking innovation like gene evaluation theory. That's the last verse that AI also causes AI at Amazon, that's also loan bioterror, more 17 scientists been able to train and check the answers in the globe, evidence to get it. Outcome study factory resources and other logic in seconds, accurate 95% of the time innovation can bring advances to other factories such as those causing food prices, solves admin costs, which is their internal link to the advantage to the lobby of the 18 Amazon's master of linear artificial while they're living in healthcare, they eventually focus on the mission we have to have financial backing of the mission firms that didn't know how to make it time to place negotiate rates directly with other providers who technology to easy consumers' ability to make appointments with access quality, care and information, market information. The warranty internal evidence that says that the best form of deterrence is one of increasing AI innovation, so that's also the internal impact of advantage too, but we're not going for the unique offense. We can see there's no impact of the food wars. Also midterms, sorry I skipped it, but we're also not going for that. We can see Trump checks, so there's no risk of an internal link with him collapsing democracy. The racist hat. Economic growth is an impact filters, allowing trade expectation change decision-making process, increase the productivity of leaders, to backlash progression to foreign policy. That's honest and trade expectations key to color areas wrong, roughly 17, and then has a significant effect on the probability economically positive. Outlook future trade investment reduces that big over negative expectation applied to a preemptive war. Instead of winning one fierce level, one set of statistics of receiving maximized security becomes it's a form of commercial power, which may reduce these effects of dependence. And two is Trump diversity pressure ensures that it goes nuclear. At least 17 the good political science suggests we live to new pledges and service was whether we change more studies on the present use force. Economic strategy can also leaders are more likely to engage in diversion series of possibility new dangerous flight head goes nuclear cost extinction 316 nuclear water the other thing of Trump which is one source that can increase possibility diversion a war the nuclear water the launches middle states advantage leadership and cause of the climate effects on the global scale market at market global scale the impact defense on the midterm success does not take out because the evidence says that it changes the calculus for what advisors want to go war in terms of economic downturn turns bioterror and disease right 10 minute hospital capacity quality safety healthcare delivery sunshine economic health service the resources and income hospital first have for the duties and emissions hospital for delivery quality retaining bonds donations are down turns advantage too because it relies on new forms of innovation gene therapy can't do that with strong economy and e-comes better turn dress 14 the political stable of process immediately for absence of one degree comes with hedge fund commercial disease or less than 10 degrees economies more reduced allocated economic the imperial the only force structures to influence conflict probability unity data and controversial military promising alone is not the so-called mechanism that which unity species is a link to most unity has long time so the production conflict competition motivating and economic source that leads to peace market and lead to peace who we see number 2 rates not key evidence about one internal evidence testing cost and access price bubble and it's the only way we can ever go to where recessions come near 16 customers get a monetary housing prices destruction of better inflation inflation to having good tracking such as the person housing bubble devastating national disaster stock market cluster terror sectors not custody recession major recession only caused by monetary policy failures from lapse in GDP emission wages and getting down federal spending most employers rather than negotiating rates in the independent market even mostly forms in the long-term competition nominal the terms this led to financial market instability 2 we see number 3 about terrorist argument was answered then 2 we see counterplan led also, it's a statistical uniqueness argument is wrong. One thing uniqueness evidence says that the Federal Reserve itself is going to keep rates natural. That matters more than an economist thinking about what the interest rate should happen because you should only know what the Federal Reserve is going to do. Means you should prefer to make evidence that actually cites them. It won't raise faster earn 18 companies in the nation of good possibility of keeping inflation financial bubbles under the United States economy 2019 policies and how such your powers have been economic consistency continue to gradually increase the power of the economies. Believe they keep running the economy a little hot policy projecting negative species blood forward for the biggest economic person of those who are to do the economy. It's probably in terms of the defense message rapidly was more sustainable the pessimist. Just their evidence is priced in by the status quo the already know 3 hates that are coming that is going to be locked in, but the plan costs more customer. 18 the Federal Race and the much more resources by technology was economy single these second natural place right so 18 the Federal Race increase from tax price more this year and inflation is low. That's what's key bond buyer 18 consumer prices good in front of inflation keeping profit the Fed target without the can break up the window we're in a faster piece of rate hikes market at faster rate hikes and
No trying to trade war.
No China trade war, the business times 18, the trade war going to do enough damage to the recession. Friday is getting able to economy strong enough to keep on going. Sounding trade war just a meaningful damage just to get a recession in either country. So Mark Sandy, chief economist at Moody's market, and Moody's tax reform rereading of the 2EC evidence is bastardizing it. Romer says that the historical record proves that every time there's a tax hit, it doesn't cause any foreign conflict. Yes, a link argument. Even if you do forms of taxes, you still cause more forms of short-term inflation through wage growth laws. 314 global growth price more than 3% of use funding global growth comes in nothing because research inflation with current sharp takes in the world recession, the world economy speeds lots of the forms of companies are investing strong jobs are boosting spending each channel here. Your financial position has seen foreseen out of inflation level problems are just for the fishes not the terms raising the key risk. The world of the rapid uptake of which includes most likely catalyst. That means that you cause inflation, spike rates, raw 18 the rate that goes in each year, which of course was 1% that we should speaking of the concept of reserve some of the way you should use it have it understanding and independently planned incentivizes third-party insurance that wrecks healthcare productivity graham something shifts from the direct payments to third-party payments second patient's ability to signal what they would have any much as like a wrong sentence negative impact on anybody personal but occupied in the household nine-fold and cost-station for data sounding 40 program nature engine of these with Medicare Medicaid growth indicates a strong decline in productivity market productivity pausing fueling demand in an unproductive sector causes rate hikes langy 18 stimulus could have lose time without forgetting the company investment to make worse more effective with workers the social languages and all the reason you're getting with a high inflation doesn't work have much more long-term budget no productivity with the Fed watching Trump's with the close to the Fed get that their case is raising inflation shows signs taking out one way and all workers shop over between those reasons because of the support of the Fed continues raise market raising rates and plan escalates cost to adoption of costly medical technology cost inflation outside 70 things also say what analyze budget and historical spending patterns before and after medical and introduction Medicare first adoption of medical technology with insurance services delayed changes but a big aggregate increase in demand hospitals adopting new technical use because they're not paid for the insurance money increase demand because of limited pricing first adoption new technology because it showed introduction of Medicare causing enormous spending effects threat of insurance played a very big role in driving healthcare spending growth that's the biggest factor in escalating costs inflation price revenue growth increased spending technology healthcare change tech changes always ahead of us second future health as much as 2/3 per capita health spending comes and the argument about the spending bill was answered by all the uniqueness of the support prices and prices not going to increase and the plan ensures no increase on price and ensures inflation scatters on 105 institutional reason cost absorption the way to cost of Japanese increase services are maybe most important factor having prices such as reflect the same as the only purpose of absorption and encouraging innovators after the large problem in the long run. That's a long run. I'm setting out the mark version now.
Did you also send out the text for the 2NC tariffs counterclaim?
That was in the 2NC document.
Oh, it was? Oh, gotcha, thanks.
Yeah.
We have,
I wrote it down. Somewhere. If I can- We have 651.
It's in the Dropbox already.
You want to send out the
Open.
document?
Just open it up. That way we don't have to make people open multiple. Open the Dropbox and it's that one. The bottom one.
That's not loaded.
It says mine's.
I think you just, yeah. Sorry, we're gonna send out 2 docs. I'll give you a second to consolidate. Just control it. It's gonna be in order. Okay. So. The order will be Advantage 1, Advantage 2, Advantage Counterplan, Amazon, rates.
So there's a second doc coming, right?
Yeah, they emailed both.
Yeah, they're already.
I got 'em.
The second one, yeah.
So it's Advantage 1 Bioterror, Advantage 2 Gene Therapy, the free market, and Advantage Counterplan, the Amazon decide, the rates decide?
Yes. Well, I'll give everyone a second to consolidate that.
It's like how it will start is doc 2, and then once he gets to the DA, he's gonna do his doc, and then back to my doc on the interview.
Right, so just paste his doc on the GA below it. Right,
Okay, I think I got
So
it.
basically, if you
Yeah.
take Jeff's doc,
Yeah, yeah,
and you
yeah.
paste everything in it right above the DA section of
Yeah,
my doc,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
in
yeah.
order.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah.
I'm not used to Jeffrey actually sending out docs or something.
Oh, yeah. Right, everyone good?
Barbiters of towards the economy, little evidence of the economic operation was shut down because no one reports through workers that produce no shortages and 2AC didn't drop in entire primary care centers a link turn. Shortages and hospital closures coming down because the doctor burnout plan revitalizes the field and brings a sustainable workforce, which says hospitals also means they can't be offense because they're declining now. The rationing stuff, same the argument applied though. Our 2AC evidence decides Canada, the torrent says that they limit elective services. Why the fuck would they limit primary care checkup visits, which is what is key to advanced solvency because they're super cheap. They'd obviously limit heart surgeries and have waiting lists for things that don't matter for advanced solvency wait times. This room flood in 17 single pair. So does England have been limited wait times within Canada? There's been tests attacking wait time priorities times the U.S. are comparable to Canada against appointments as well. As well as tests cost of English time with some people choose to see care or fill disruptions. American approach loses wait times through gaps of perception. Surely gets bullshit from one Boston pediatrician. Obviously a conservative hack and doesn't cite any observational data. $130 argument when there was 10 attacks, they'd still be able to solve it because of solid evidence they have strong primary care response capabilities, and they wouldn't be able to do that because there's at a certain point they overstretch the resources. The Bioterror defense is 11 years old. Ours is cite top intelligence officials from this year. The Gene to Vienna. Is there a residual argument?
What?
Trump retaliation was conceded because of global nuclear war in the Middle East, and it isolates us from our enemies in the Middle East and causes economic relations to collapse. Gene advantage research fields is not responsive because it's about health consumers or for insurers, but this is only takes out the counter plan because they do subsidies in the market. Our Daniels evidence is the only card about gene therapy, which has that new types payments work because it tracks patient health outcomes over time, which has empirically been successful. The deterrence evidence doesn't assume that China has rising capabilities because of CRISPR. None of our current war fighting capabilities assume causes causes escalation with China and Russia goes nuclear. Notice these evidences assume Ebola's unique transmissibility and virulence, and our evidence is newer than theirs. Constitution, the advantage counterplan obviously links to the DA, causes inflation, it grows the economy. All of their card throw it helps consumers and gives them more money in their pocket. Prove that it would be the same spending that all of their link evidence is talking about. They don't have a fucking card that says it doesn't link, and they just blew it off, and the block their evidence on the value-based stuff sucks. It just vaguely says that government regulation is less efficient. None of their cards are reverse casual, and says that the counterplan would cause innovation, and none of them say the words gene therapy. Our 2AC evidence says that they can't succeed under our free market structure. It chills investment, and insurance companies just simply won't reimburse them. The 2NC counterplan about data doesn't answer our argument, because our argument is that not sharing data means that they can't solve the advantage, because you need patient tracking over time. And it's not a solvency takeout, because it doesn't say the words gene therapy. It's super vague. It doesn't answer our internal links, which are specific. The bioterrorism stuff about the surveillance one, it doesn't solve primary care because of burnout and physicians are too busy, which means that they can't have early detection because they can't have long enough appointments with their patients, so they miss disease warning times, which is our internal link. And there's not enough doctors. There'll be 90,000 shortage now, which means the surveillance claim can't solve, and universal coverage is key to it. Our TIGA card they dropped on the DA says that $1 to $5 copays means that people wouldn't go to the doctor, so free market wouldn't fill in the gaps. It would mean that people would go to the doctor, so it would spread out of control and no one would go. It doesn't reduce administrative complexity. They just dropped our entire solvency deficit. Our arguments that the free market complexity means that doctors don't have enough time to spend with patients, so that Rex early detection means that biorepair spreads out of control. Lopez 17 efficiently linked to multipayer, and the factor right need for care is paid by the government. Doctors don't have to show them the papers to let from keeping insurance and to keeping track of whether a person is covered, what they're covered for, where they can receive care, who gets billed, consumes endless hours of time of providers. The doctor-patient trust thing is irrelevant because it's only one of our internal links. It's not sufficient. Not answer the rationing thing on case, and there's no warrant to them increasing access to physicians. The Amazon Care doesn't solve multi-payer because it still maintains a free market, which means that it consumes doctor-payer time through administrative complexity, which our SIGA card also says that people wouldn't be able to pay for even just $1 or $5 plan, so it doesn't solve the monetary advantage. The administrative cost cards they read is not about doctor complexity and time. It's about cost, which doesn't solve our advantage, and there's no site on the fucking card. It's not qualified, so if they explain it in the tour, we get new answers. Rates DA, there's no impact to it because there's zero chance of decline causing war. The clear evidence cites over 109 instances of decline says at least a threat to inflation in cooperation because people want the money to be spent on domestic spending. It doesn't turn bioterrorism because the plan keeps funding healthcare, so they wouldn't be hurt economically in time of the closure. It doesn't turn economy the same answer. They still fund gene therapy, no deterrence, because it doesn't assume military tech sucks down because of CRISPR, and with zero chance of decline causing war. Jervis said, I love it hard to believe the comments would be great enough to lead humanity to find each other, even the extreme versions of trade. You can leave him tried hard to see how leaders of mass opinion would come believe the country was prosper by attacking others. The fact that we have seen such a hard economic downturn without anyone searching for stress, even if bad times bring about greater economic conflict, cannot make or thinkable. Wait proves that you're forcing uncertainty crisis lead to conflict through diversity wars or require conflict each other to stress. Otherwise, in the use of economics of peacefulness, in the same was the administrative violence, they declined in the crisis studies for such a thought trigger crisis generated precious thousands of no Trump diversity war. Either it's inevitable because there are tons of things that direct attention away from, like Mueller, toilet approval ratings, failing agenda, Stormy Daniels, or the fact that he is already doing it just proves that he's also a narcissist and only cares about what his base think. If we win, popular opinion would be against it. He wouldn't do it. The rate hikes can collapse the economy, and even if they can, the current schedule of rate hikes trigger the DA market fundamentals and emerging economies means that the system has built-in resiliency, won't crash. Rate hikes protect the economy overheating, where in 15 hikes will offer protection against overheating the economy. Rapid onset increases tolerable because of multiple key indicators like inflation and unemployment continue to close on the Fed's target levels. Good idea, stay ahead of the avoid having to implement the increases and even greater pace later scenario, even trigger fund overall economic process would place the economy and read the uniqueness to be if their PAL evidence is right, then no hikes or the Fed will be too responsive to issues like the national debt, treasury yields, and Trump's tax cuts. Prefer our evidence because it's citing investors. Fed's too responsive to the market. They'll increase rates at random, dominant, and 18 bond yields. A spike after hyperinflation signals. Fed can be hiking rates for longer than expected. Surprise increase. All tip was one. Hot inflation reports again fits to the market that the Fed might rates increase in times have been changing the forecast of this year to include another rate hike, SQO rate hikes, a thumb between the impact borders and 321 years rate hikes, causing global fallout. Others worried upon the pay that we're tiny major engaged growth members penciled in the 5 rates over 21 a month. We expected that it puts greenback linked economy set up with more rate hikes. The way mind games are sure to intensify. America's rate and currency strategy is set to be another problem. All causes the Trump diversity war foster in 12-9 true respect and Trump engagement diversity war leaders launch conflicts to deflect attention away from scandal, unpopularity, or the economy. Do you want another card here? 12 seconds. Competition fails us on the counterplan. Singer 17 comments here. A good mission on planet is otherwise comes through to all allocated and all consumers are equipped to manage types of information.
You didn't put Lopez in the doc, I don't think.
How long do you want?
We have 220. And is there a card that is being emailed that wasn't in the doc, or?
I think I was in the
No. I opened your doc, the Lopez card.
I'll
you read.
body.
Yeah, so the first card he read on the counterplan, he's emailing out right now.
I see, because the Singer card was not that one, right?
Right.
Yeah.
He just marked the Singer card at the end of that speech.
Oh, I see. Okay. That was that last thing. All right, I am opening whatever was sent, and then I'm going to start it.
Yeah.
Okay. 220. Yeah. No, but, thank you. But just answering that. Did you read this Reuters uniqueness card?
Yes, I read everything in the DF.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Watch that leg.
Yeah.
Are you a junior?
Senior, yeah, this is my fourth year. So is Mark. Okay, the order is going to be the free market counterplan, Advantage 1, Bioterror, the Amazon disad, the interest rates disad, and then Advantage 2.
Sorry, I accidentally deleted one of my Cubes Dropbox folders, so I was.
Oh, wow.
as you started that, so I was trying to fix that.
Tom threatens to do
Yeah,
that to
no,
us.
Immediately. So could you say that one more time?
Yeah, free market counterplan.
Yeah.
The Advantage 1 bioterror advantage, the Amazon disad, the interest rates disad, and then Advantage 2 value care precision medicine.
I think our SharePoint got deleted like at the NDT one year.
Yeah, but like that wasn't because someone did it. It was just because like tech reasons. It wasn't
unclear.
code sabotage.
Unclear.
Well, yeah, I guess. Okay, is anyone not ready? Okay.
The affirmative team hasn't come to grips with our link turn strategy. Even the counterplan is not amazing. We have link turned the affirmative in so many ways by proving that government insurance is terrible for both advantages, which proves that we don't need to win a huge song set to win a small risk of link turning their advantages. The counterplan just provides uniqueness for that stuff. The counterplan doesn't link to the econ dissent about interest rates because it's about overheating the economy through inefficient diversion of spending into a bad healthcare sector that is propped up by third-party payers. The counterplan makes the sector more efficient, which means that we don't inflate the economy because we don't increase the amount of demand for healthcare services without limiting the supply. Instead, we make the supply more efficient to meet the demands of the market, which means we don't result in inflation fears by the Federal Reserve. But even if we do, you can kick the counterplan for it. They have an extended conditionality, bad reason, judge kick is logical, and we should get the link turned or the interest rates set against the plan. Now, the counterplan solves their value-based care advantage and gene therapy for a couple of reasons. First is the government regulation fails at picking winners. Bureaucracy leads to perverse incentives. Every dollar the government spends on genetic therapies is a dollar that someone with a lobbyist wants. They will circumvent the process of government payments through backdoor deals instead of competing purely on quality. That's our Sklar and Van Altenberg evidence. The counterplan is better because it forces those companies to prove that they can provide successful personalized medicine to the consumers directly, which is more efficient. Also, third-party payments locks in bad therapies because it prevents the market from price correcting. If a company gets a contract to start developing that clinical research, it will be years and years of funding get down the drain by the government. If the technology eventually fails, and the government will never self-correct, but the market does, when the technology fails, no one will buy it, so the correction happens faster. Also, there's an internal link comparison question. The counterplan is, it is better to lead to a free market competition for investment, even if they get less upfront investment money, than it is to lock in an inefficient government contracts. Two reasons. First is that consumers can shop around. Our evidence is better because their evidence is assuming a world where they can't shop around for different insurance companies. The counterplan has a transparency plank that forces providers to advertise their differences between prices and quality of their products, which means that consumers can hold the company's feet to the fire much better than the government. Second is empirics. We have a bunch of different free market. If we have a free market in a bunch of different commodities, oil, and different industries which are working great and doesn't need an insurance or the government to regulate those for us. They say multiplayer is bad at cost, but the counterplan decreases administrative complexity because they don't have to pay the insurance middleman, which is the reason why admin costs are high. The government is tired with having to negotiate with a third-party payer vis-a-vis different types of insurance contracts between Aetna and Blue Cross Blue Shield. The counterplan gets rid of that. It gets rid of government fee-for-service contracts and allows people to compete at the point of service delivery, which results in the decreasing of administrative complexity and more time with doctors, spending time with patients, which is all of our trust arguments. Second is that the free market solves the innovation costs through citizen science projects, which are the cheap ways to hire people and analyze data, which decreases the price of upfront capital costs. They say it doesn't need the gene therapy, but their evidence from the 1AC is talking about how gene therapy is coming now, and we're link turning whether or not the counterplan or the affirmative is better for innovation on that question. Data, they've conceded the 2NC counterplan that establishes property rights for individuals that they can there sell their data, and they would be incentivized to do so because they can make money off it. Our evidence says that is much better than government regulation because it's a privacy question. People would be much less willing to share their data in a world of the plan because they would be afraid of the government Big Brother surveillance operation, which means it's a link turn, it's offense because there's less data in the world of the plan than there is in the counterplan. We also saw the access, we saw the bioterror advantage through our surveillance plank. There is no reason why insurance is critical. If we spend a bunch more money spending on health professionals and different registries, quarantining, and disinfecting operations, that would solve for the quick response and early detection. Also, the free market insurance would require more people to buy in the primary care because it would be cheaper, and there's no burnout argument because they would spend more time with patients and it solves shortages by decreasing inefficiencies. This $1 to $5 copay argument is wrong. People would be able to buy cheap insurance. Well, we saw administrative complexity that was above. Advantage 1, shortage argument prefers short-term link questions because perceptions are short-term link questions of shortages. Perception is not a hack. It's like hitting brakes on a highway because the single payer would cause immediate hospital and care facility shutdown. Businesses will feel short-term pressure to cut costs by firing doctors and limiting access to services. The link is perception-based, which means it comes before any other terms that their summer sovereignty. The counterplan solves uniqueness and lack of shortage. Now we're not going to go for rationing. It doesn't take out our shortages. It does turn the entirety of the advantage because terrorists would be more likely to release bioterror attacks in a world where there aren't any hospital facilities or they're shutting down across the country. It would be a window of opportunity for them, which increases the likelihood, even if they solve it in the long term. Now, the Amazon dissad, their answers to this in the 1AR did not grapple with the uniqueness question that solves well as the entirety of the affirmative. Amazon Healthcare is creating a tipping point for market business-driven models of insurance through tech-driven innovations. That creates a universal insurance scheme and spills up to a government universal scheme that adopts market policies by demonstrating a workable model that's Lazarus, which solves their internal links. Amazon will use cool AI that allows for early detection of bioweapon agents and creating new solutions. That's more. It solves administrative complexity because it will house all aspects of the insurance regime under the Amazon model and lead to a government scheme based on market fundamentals. That's Luby solves Russia and China because AI innovations provide new military capabilities. Yes, there's citation and our evidence. The econ dissent impact debate. The economy collapses. The economy causes diversionary war. It's bad. Strong economy provides a base of support that allows them to weather alternative causes, but collapse forces its hand to lash out. That's Farvel. Jervis doesn't assume Trump, nor does it send me warrants for rights to just a random opinion for Tennyson. And one in our evidence about statistical collapse. Dresner doesn't assume our internal link of global asset pop that makes a recession worse than an 08. Their diversionary war inevitable is bad. Says that there are scandals that cause them to lash out, but there's no evidence that say scandal causes lash out now. Yeah. Their built-in resiliency argument is about status quo, gradual rate hikes, which our evidence says is going to be stable in the status quo. Powell believes that the rate hikes are going, the inflation is going to be under control now, but the plan causes the economy to overheat because they stimulate demand for healthcare, which causes inflation. Healthcare is currently at maximum production capacity because of fixed labor supply, which means even though people demand more healthcare, it doesn't produce more economic wealth. That causes a Fed freakout. It's their job to raise interest rates to counter expected inflation, but the plan causes monetary adjustments to be less precise through a fast rate hike increase, which causes economic collapse. Internal link, monetary policies are the only internal link to economic recessions. Our summer evidence in a quantitative longitudinal study about the potential causes of economic collapse and concluded that other factors are just blips, but monetary policy was the big fish that could cause the whole ship to go down. Answers, their terrorist argument doesn't turn the economy, only monetary policy does. They're wanting our tax cuts arguments to solve by our counterplan that says that we repeal the tax cuts. Also, it's not about tax cuts. The federal government wouldn't extend the rate. They conceded that it was only temporary, which means only long-term changes like the affirmative would cause it. And also, the advantage two, our link turns and advantage one turns it because the bioterror attack would collapse our military hegemony, and it doesn't take out this doesn't take out our counterplan, the risk adjustment stuff, because it's only about government rate setting, trying to determine value. It's not possible to collect all the different info through a government agency. It's much better at the point of service because companies have a much more direct line to people who are buying their services.
213.
Yeah, no, you did good. That's what I want.
Amazon. Counterplan. Data.
Gene therapy. Can you just do the whole thing again? I think I got it, but I want to make sure.
Gene therapy.
Yeah.
Bioterrorism.
Yeah.
Amazon. Free market. ION. Which interest rates, but that's whatever.
Sure.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Not doing much on this advantage because they don't have any external offense on it, but the bias advantage is where I'm at nowadays. Try your type for the affirmative because the status quo kills us all. There's a higher risk of a solvency topic degree results in not foul because while answer the link turns on both advantages on the counterpoint. The only thing they have going on the case is the hospital shortage argument. Hospitals are already going to close down now because the primary care field is dying. They've failed to grasp with the uniqueness of the advantage, which is that doctors are being driven out of the field because of administrative complexity and the profit motive undermining the patient trust relationship, but also meaning that no one's entering into the field, which is causing hospitals to experience chronic shortages and shutdown. It's undermining our first line of defense against bioterror attacks. They've also conceded that their perception evidence isn't qualified. It's one from one neoconservative Boston pediatrician. It doesn't make a claim about the whole system or cite any data, but the plan brings United States doctors into the field, which revitalizes the system. Also, just the fact that we place the entire system under consolidated care means that everyone's able to afford care, which means hospitals have a direct line into millions of new consumers, which means that they no longer have to shut down. The Amazon DA is where our actual first is that they concede that a bioterrorism attack or Trump retaliation would kill the global economy because it would lead to attacks on the Middle East, which would go global and isolate the United States by the end of the week, or a bioterror attack would spread out of control, collapse global flare trust. Each of these scenarios are independently causing extinction are not a thing that are responded to in the 200, which means there's a high risk of an extinction level impact if you vote negative. The Amazon DA also proves that the SQO triggers the DA. I didn't say this before because I thought there was no way the 200 would do something so stupid, but their argument is that the SQO is going to result in universal healthcare, which will increase demand and spending, which obviously triggers the DA, but that's not even the big part. Amazon doesn't solve the fucking app. You can see that cost sharing means that people just won't seek care, which means they can't take out bioterror because there's not enough people to solve early detection. That was the 1AR, that was the 2CRT evidence that the 1NR and the 2NR did not answer. It can't solve administrative collapse. The evidence that the 1NR reads does not have a site to it. It also is just talking about why Amazon is going to be able to drive down prices. This will also be the thesis of our argument as to why the market counterpoint cannot solve the advantage, but the entire thesis of when their evidence is talking about administrative cost does not answer our internal link about administrative complexity, because the idea of lowering costs forces insurers to compete against each other. It doesn't drive any of the multi-payer system out, which means it cannot solve any of the advantage. I'll explain more of this on the free market counterpoint, which is where I am at now. First argument, it links to the DA. The argument that it does not, because this new explanation about demand versus supply is literally asinine. The thesis of the counterpoint is they reduce the cost of healthcare services and make it so that people are able to negotiate with providers and insurers to lower down costs, which means they have more money in their pocket to spend on the economy. It's the reason their link evidence says that increased benefit packages cause overheating in the economy is because it increases consumer purchasing power on this. The 2C just blew over this, and the 2NR pretended it didn't exist. The counterpoint absolutely links to the DA, which means the only possible offense for them is some tiny little risk of a solvency differential, but if the SQO is already unsustainable, then it means presumption flips affirmative because they've agreed the SQO is bad and there's only risk that the plan saves more lives. They say it leads to circumvention through backdoors, but none of their evidence about value-based payment or any of the data collection arguments are about gene therapy, so you should default to our Matt Key and our Daniel, which describes the way that multi-payer fee-for-service systems prevent the explosion of the field because they're unable to track across they're unable to keep track of year-long gene therapies, which is, it takes a long time over the life of someone to solve their cancer, which is why it's important to bring it all under one field so that the same provider can constantly analyze their data, see how the treatment is keeping up, but insurers won't do that because they're stingy and they don't want to give their competitors all that data because it means they pay the upfront cost, but their competitors get the benefits of it, which is all warranted within the Daniel evidence. The free market has zero efficiency or ability to solve the affirmative. Consumers do not have the ability to use healthcare like other goods that the 2NR examples. The 1AR Singer evidence says it's not like other sectors. There are information asymmetries and consumers just are not smart enough. There's no card that substantiates that they cut out all private insurance, which means they might decrease prices, but they do not decrease administrative complexity. The 1AR Lopez evidence says that there is still a flurry and blizzard of paperwork that they have to decide who is covered, what they're covered by, how
the different things they do. If they do lead to direct purchasing, they just make it so that the doctors have to be the economists and ones who determine the price of everything, which means that they still don't have time to spend with the patient. Citizen scientists are not the counterpoint, and this quo does not solve. That is the explanation why fee-for-service prevents it, and also why administrative costs undermine doctor shortages. The plan solves trust because single payer is great for it. The Tracy Miller evidence says it increases patient face time and reduces physician turnover. Surveillance doesn't solve because it still has cost sharing, which prevents universal coverage because no one seeks the care. The economy of it.
You know this.
Huh?
Say it doesn't solve administrative complexity.
It also can't solve administrative complexity or burnout, which means that even if we have surveillance, there's no doctors to treat people once we know that the disease exists. The dissent is where I'm at now. There's no impact to the climate. There's technical concessions. They dropped the 1 AR argument that Trump is a narcissist who only cares about what people think about him. They dropped the warrant to Jervis, which is that the public would backlash if leaders went to war during a recession because they would see it as making the recession worse by wasting money on a war instead of spending it at home, which means that any of their data, none of their data assumes Trump's unique personality. None of their evidence cites data. They just assert it as in the shooter, but don't explain what data it cites. Cleary is citing 198% of decline. It says it leads to threat to place because there's incentive to cooperate and trade more and cut military expenditures. 08 also disproves their impact. Their answer was just that the recession would be worse, but none of their impact cards make a distinction between a really, really bad collapse and just a collapse. 08 increased peace obviously disproves the causality of the impact. Trump diversion war is either inevitable or disproved. Their only answer is that no ebb says that scandals cause diversion, but the 1 AR Foster evidence says that presidents divert away from low approvals, scandals, and the economy. It's also obvious that scandals and low approvals create the same incentive to divert away from problems at home. Obviously, the only reason it calls diversion war is to protect your approvals from collapsing during recession. If Trump is diversion, he'll cause a war over Russia or Stormy Daniels or his toilet approvals or the fact that he already means, or the fact that it hasn't means it's already denied. It can't turn bioterror because hospitals would still have guaranteed funding for the plan's durable fiat, which means they are insulated from a decline because they still have patients, which gives them a source of income so they wouldn't shut down, which means it's insulated from durable fiat. The uniqueness argument. Reuters say that U.S. rate hikes already fast enough to happen, collapsing the global economy, but our job evidence says the whole DA is white noise because the Fed has a whole new board and is overly responsive to the market, so they'll keep changing their rate of interest rate hikes. Or their uniqueness argument is true that Powell is so smart and is going to put the economy on track that he wouldn't react to the plan by raising interest rates at rates so dangerous that would collapse the global economy.
obviously this video is very close and excellent, first of all. I think I gave the highest points, like, total that I've ever given in a room. So, first of all, excellent. But, I think that the evidence that, the Daniel evidence, I think is superior to a lot of the more generic evidence on the counter plan that says that any system where people are likely to change plans, or just, I guess this would also apply to negotiating directly with providers, would make it impossible to do the studies necessary to get gene therapy to work. I think that if there was some more basis to this idea of like they'd sell their data to these companies, I think that would obviously be helpful. I think or if that is somewhere just highlighting kind of why that be the case, or I don't know, maybe put that in the counter plan to incentivize that kind of thing. That makes a lot of sense. It seems like there are ways around this, but I think that I'm not exactly sure why how the counter plan can resolve this. I think the Daniel evidence says that there is kind of an urgency to getting these things clarified now, so these studies can start in order to resolve these impacts. I think there's a big impact to that. I think that the it's I think there's a big risk of the impact in the app resolving that. I think that the offense that the 2NR goes for, both the disad and the turns on case, is more probabilistic than the app offense. I think that the hospital shutdown disad, I think that the evidence for immediate closures is not so qualified, not so good, and I think the block evidence isn't as clear on kind of like the time frame for shutting down. I was close to thinking that you just could win a short-term risk of a link turn on this advantage. I think that I'm just kind of like searching for the 1EC evidence of kind of what you're link turning, and I don't know that there's really a distinction between what would happen if there was hospital shutdowns as a result of the plan, why it's distinct from the status quo where people are being underserved. It seems like the 1EC evidence is saying that terrorists have a motive to target underserved communities. I'm not really sure. I mean, this makes me pretty pessimistic about the ability to solve for bioterrorism. But I think that I'm not sure that there's really uniqueness to this argument if terrorists, like their motive is to serve communities where people are not getting health care. I think maybe drawing out more of a distinction why the signal of hospitals closing matters more than if they're not being access to care. But I'm not sure that the 1EC evidence really draws that distinction. So I'm not very. I think there's definitely and the app has a pretty persuasive argument for why they're able to keep doctors in the field. So I think there's a little more discussion of why the signal of the app just like shutting down hospitals is more important than keeping doctors in the profession and making sure they're enough doctors to actually do the work. And then I think that there is sufficient defense on the interest rates disad that this makes me think that I'm quite confident that the status quo and the counter plan can resolve gene therapies for the kind of reasons above, and I thought that outweighed the risk of that.
Okay. Well, it's a little bit odd because I'm not sure that the app went for it, but I also voted on gene therapies, but in the opposite direction. I think this is a place where the app is ahead on questions of evidence quality, but quite behind on some technical questions. I could see you all, and I thought about this, being a little bit frustrated to hear that I voted on gene therapy because the 2NR didn't extend an impact to it. But there's no impact defense, and the 2NR clearly does say we are straight turning both advantages. And in the absence of impact defense, like sure it would help to have like some impact calc, but I don't think like the fact that Theo wasn't like extend this impact, extend that impact, that doesn't mean it goes away in the absence of impact defense, particularly when he was pretty clear, I thought, that they were straight turning both advantages. So there's a couple of things. I think that the biggest thing I thought was at the end of the round, I didn't think that you all were answering kind of at all their argument that the government just sucks at picking value and will be captured by interests in a way that will cause them to set prices in ways that are bad or ineffective for actually achieving value. And I don't think that argument was really answered at all by you all. And the second thing, that was the thing I think they won most clearly. I also gave them some offense on the internal solvency turn to the data counter plan about privacy. I think that is dropped by the 1AR. Even if I were to allow kind of the new 2AR answers, the answer to the 2AR is we solved that because we solved trust. It's a little unclear to me if solving doctor trust is the same thing as solving privacy concerns. And I thought that their evidence was quite good that addressing privacy concerns was necessary to solve for effective data sharing. And so the starting point, so there's some questions about whether the neg can solve this. But the starting point is that I didn't think that the AF solved it at all, which means that voting affirmative is a very unattractive proposition. The answer that you all had, I felt like, is that multi-payer wouldn't share data because they'd be stingy. Right. And to me, that was not the solvency deficit to go for. I think that their evidence for their counter plan that consumers would directly share data and create a national health data database on their own was shockingly excellent. And so I thought you could win the full weight of your argument there, but not the implication. To me, the better solvency deficit, but not what I think you all went for, was that even if consumers want to buy value, I thought your evidence was quite good that certainty of purchasing, long-term purchasing contracts based on value that are adjusted year to year based on that effectiveness is necessary to stimulate the right sorts of innovation. And it's really hard for me to imagine that companies could be confident that consumers would adjust their purchasing actions not only in a way that is consistent with value, but in a way that is consistent with value that alters over time and locks in the certainty of the contracts that the AF creates. But I didn't think that argument was our solvency deficit that you went for. So I kind of thought they were doing very well on counterplan solves that advantage, and I thought that they were doing very well on the AF doesn't. Bioterror, I thought that you all were doing quite well on the access and cost sharing solvency deficit. Less so on complications. I thought you won multi-payer is very complicated, but maybe didn't have an answer that the counterplan just cut out insurance altogether and resulted in direct purchasing. But that didn't matter. I thought you were doing well on access and cost sharing. There are two things that cut into that. Hospitals obviously gives them some leverage back in, but the thing that was like really big for me is that I didn't think that the 1AR or the 2AR just answered AI solves bioterror attack. And their evidence on that was like super good and spoke to an ability to solve prior to, like your argument is like universal coverage, key, they need doctors. And I thought that their evidence spoke to the propensity for an attack to occur in the first place. You kind of gave a reaction when I said I didn't think that you all answered that.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, I kind of had this set out for the debate too. Their evidence says it prevents the attack from happening, and so that's.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, their evidence is like, and I mean, it's imperfect, you could definitely indict it, but I didn't think you all did. I mean, it
Right.
says that with 90% or 95% accuracy, it could identify the presence of a biological agent within like a minute. Now, it's about like the ability to do that for like one thing and like whether we could do that nationwide for like all things. I certainly think there's ability to indict there, but I just didn't think that you all did. And so I thought that there was kind of some conceded defense on bioterror and a link turn on genes. And honestly, I didn't even get to interest rates.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did read their card before the 1 year, and I was kind of thinking about that. I guess the way I was thinking about it was even if AI identifies the attack, it's just like, cool, we know it exists, but because there's shortages in hospitals, because of administrative complexities, we can't respond to it.
Yeah, but I guess I thought that
Yeah.
I thought you won like your internal link means we can't respond.
Yeah.
But if we detect it within a minute of its presence,
It just,
then
oh, yeah, okay.
we can shut it down before it happens.
Sure, okay, yeah.
And I guess I thought that like I said, I could see arguments. I just felt like you all needed to speak to that more directly.
Right, okay. That's fair.
Yeah, disagree at all with the data advantage. They're like government sucks at value because of perverse incentives and information. Plus their like privatization and autonomy creates a consumer database that solves is like sufficient and not really answered by you all. The only area I kind of had a difference of opinion is I kind of think they're ahead on this bioterror link turn a little bit. I think their single payer creates short-term shock because of influx of demand, which reduces supply because they like fire doctors, they have limited access to certain types of care. They're like, I think it's the authors cause them. It's pretty good on the timing function of this. It's just like in the interim period of 10 to 20 years, there'd be like delayed times and shortages, which makes us much more susceptible to bioterror attack, combined with uniqueness that AI solves it now. Made that a little complicated, and I think your best answer to this was the like doctor shortages, hospital shutdowns now, and I don't think that Ev is particularly great on like hospitals shutting down, and I think that the doctor shortage stuff is like doctors are kind of overconsumed with administrative costs of dealing with third party. I forgot what the Ev said, it's like for every 1 hour that they spend with patients, they spend like 2 hours dealing with third party insurance. Yeah, and I think the counterplan kind of eliminates this because a lot of your multi-payer bad stuff is about the SQUO, and they are just like eliminate Medicaid, eliminate Medicare. It'll get rid of third-party insurers because doctors can set prices with the consumers,
Can I ask, is there a card that anyone thinks says this crowd out private insurers thing? Like, I get that they get rid of Medicaid, Medicare, and shit like that.
I thought that they had 2 cards.
Like, this sounds like some magic shit that, like, doesn't happen.
I thought that they had 2 cards that were pretty good at saying it, and I think that they certainly could be indicted as being aspirational and not having evidence that
I get the
says
counterpoint
that they will.
increases
Yeah.
direct purchasing, but like, it
I
felt
thought
like
that- I
everyone
thought
like
that
was confusing multiplayer complexity with just like the existence of several government-funded programs, which is like.
I thought
not
that their
what it is.
Scalar evidence and their Graham evidence were both pretty good at saying we crowd out private insurance. And I guess the thing for you all, I thought you all spent a lot of time winning an argument that you were already way ahead on, which is that the presence of multi-payer creates administrative complexity that accesses your advantage, and not enough time pushing on something that I think you could push on, which is there evidence sufficient to establish the crowd out of third-party insurance? So I think you all were focused a lot on the impact, but you were already ahead on the impact, and you needed to focus more on the link.
Yeah, and probably more solvency aspects to the like new world proposing. I feel like a lot of your multi-payer bad stuff is I didn't think there was a lot of
that-
just like fully privatization bad, but that's just my.
Okay.
I, to be honest, because the time didn't really evaluate most of the DA. I think some of your impact you spin in the 2AR is pretty good on like scandals, deposit, and the whole reason why economic consent would lead to him going to war is because of approval ratings in the first place. So there's that. But I mean,
So I'm frustrated with this. Like we make a pretty big push on like they don't crowd out private insurers because all they do is lower costs, which just means they compete against each other. I read both of these cards now. The Graham card at most gets to we need to repeal insurers and government's control over our health spending and replace it with a system directly controlled by patients. That's not saying it gets rid of insurers, that's just saying patients control the pricing, which is negotiation competition. And SCLAR, I don't even know where the line that it says we need to unchain providers from bureaucracies, but like this doesn't get anywhere near saying private companies go away. Like I just don't know how this counterpoint gets anywhere close to resolving administrative complexity or multi-payment.
I think the first card that you read is basically what the intention of the counterpoint is.
Oh, so you think they ban private
But their
insurance?
counterpoint text says
Well,
increase
hold on.
transfers.
SCLAR says the
Direct
patient should be the arbitrator of the physician's quality of care. We should move away from third-party.
But do you see how that's like aspirational?
Yes,
It's
I
like-
agree.
Right.
No, I
That's what I'm
totally
saying is
agree,
the
but I
2AR
don't
is
think, I
like
don't
they don't
think that
do
you all.
this.
Wait, so you
That's
thought
not what
you thought
competition
they
is.
explained the text of the counterplan as like outline private
No,
insurance?
I don't. I think that they
Okay.
explained the counterplan as giving people direct money,
Oh,
which
okay.
meant
He
that they
thinks we
would
need to
do
establish the link
direct
better.
purchasing. And I think that their evidence is aspirational, that is like, that would result in cutout of private insurance.
And they're winning that people would use that without going to a third party
Yes.
insurer. Okay.
And I don't think you all pushed back on their
Okay.
evidence is aspirational. And like, I mean, like, I don't know, like, I
No.
could see it being aspirational, but I mean, the patient should be the arbitrator of the
Yeah, I mean,
physician's quality of care. We should move away from third-party payment. If you think that that is a description, solvency evidence is a description of the counterplan, then certainly that is evidence saying they move away from third-party insurance. Now, maybe I could see arguments, it's aspirational, no evidence patients would actually do that or want to do that. Even if a bunch of them do, like kind of the classic single-payer,
Yeah.
any involvement of, not everyone is going to do direct payment.
How does that interact with our cost sharing